Blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere.
You are destroying the Constitution of the United States. May God have mercy on your souls.
Good day.
Yes.
Sir, say. Good day.
We could be saved if we just elected the right white man to power.
That's creepy, but that's in a different category of creepy.
Zit-zoo, zit-zoo, zit-zoo.
Gary Gygax. Of course he introduced zoning laws.
Okay.
You know what? Don't.
Yeah.
The less I have to do with that game, the better.
Here's my favorite part of the defense. Claudius was probably fucking his sister.
Jughead, not Jarhead. I have nothing against Marines. I want to make that very clear. I'd be really interested to find out what fucking truth that woman was trying to get at.
And like with most episodes, I can bring it back to wrestling. Oh. Right, well, he's got other people who work for him who also do things, and they can transmutate human size into smaller worlds, after all.
Fuck you.
I still don't give a shit about getting fake property in a fantasy game. This is a Geek History of Time,
where we connect nerdery to the real world. My name is Ed Blaylock. I am a world history teacher here in Northern California, and I am also, you may notice while we were recording, I am the caretaker, parent, whatever you want to call it, of 3 cats who, as we record this evening, are having quite the case of the zoomies in the background. So I want to apologize ahead of time if you hear thudding and the scrabbling of claws on hardwood as they try to reenact the Brickyard Indianapolis 500 on my living room floor. So if you hear that, that's who they are. Also, if you hear them complaining, understand we do feed them, whatever they might try to tell you. So please don't fall for their bullshit. And who are you?
I'm Damian Harmony. I am a Latin teacher up here in Northern California, and I have a 13-year-old pug who snores while he's awake. And I also have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. But interesting, since you brought up pets, my dog is clearly on his way out. Like, he just is. That's a fact of nature. A couple things that are kind of fun about that, weirdly, I know. One, my dog will just start barking out of nowhere, and he's deaf, so you can't tell him to stop. So my son has taken to, like, anytime he hears that happening, he immediately stops whatever he's doing. He says, oh, he just needs some attention. And he goes over and sits down next to him and just starts talking to him and petting him and stuff like that. It's really sweet.
That is.
Yeah. 2, I went and bought dog food recently. A big old 50-pound bag of dog food. And I went to the feed store and they said, hey, what's your name? I was like, Harmony. They type it into their computer. And they're like, you're not in our system. I was like, no, why would I be? I just buy dog food from you. And they're like, oh, well, you know, if you buy 12 of these, you get the 13th one free. And I just looked at her. I'm like, this bag is a lottery bag. Like, the first 20 pounds are food. The last 30 are hope. Like, I ain't going to make it to getting a free 13th bag with this dog. Like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's me. I have a weird relationship with death. So,
there you go.
Yeah. So,
not just death, but in particular.
Yeah. So last time we left off with the Carter administration almost getting decriminalization on the books. A majority of Americans were in favor of decriminalization, even in Mississippi. But the leadership of the country was not. And Carter actually ended up having to punt that football because his boy, Peter Bourne, who actually had a very legitimate and reasonable approach to drugs, kind of got busted, got caught holding the bag, as it were. And it was an embarrassment to Carter, and he didn't have the political capital to carry that through. Kind of the inverse relationship of Johnson, in that Carter was saving up his capital to do something foreign that is bringing peace between Israel and Egypt. And so he couldn't afford to lose that much capital domestically as a result. Whereas Johnson had to keep bombing the shit out of Southeast Asia, so he had enough political capital to continue with the Great Society. So just and I'm painting with real broad brushes there to save a lot of time. But I did find that to be an interesting thing. Like, he couldn't do something good for Americans because he was trying to do something good for the world, whereas Johnson couldn't do something good for the world because he was trying to do something good for Americans.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to sit with that one for a minute because holy crap.
Whereas Nixon was doing something terrible for the world and awful for Americans
and
got reelected in a landslide.
Yeah, well, yeah. Because they say you will never go broke betting on the foolishness or stupidity of the American people.
Yeah.
I'm going to amend that and say it is going to be very hard for you not to get reelected if you bet on the fear of the American people.
Yeah, I was going to say cruelty, but you're absolutely right. Fear.
Yeah.
Eastland, the guy that I talked about last time from Mississippi, he also had said that he really hated black troops during World War II. He downplayed all of their heroism. Yeah. He downplayed all of their heroism, and he definitely minimized their contributions. But he also said that the white boys from America were fighting Nazis for the cause of white supremacy.
Did that motherfucker listen to himself? How? See, this is somebody who clearly didn't have friends. Real meaningful. Okay, you need to sit down because we need to have a talk. Friends.
Right.
Because when something like this is how we know that our current president doesn't actually have any friends. It's like when something that fucking stupid comes out of your mouth, your real friends are going to be like, okay, I need you to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to back up 15 seconds. And I need you to say that again quietly because I don't want to hear it. But I need you to say that again to yourself slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've done that, maybe you'll understand why you sound like a fucking moron.
Yeah, there's a comedian who said that it's underrated getting an ass whooping from your peers. And I'm not a big fan of getting an ass whooping from anybody because I most of my living is made from above my eyebrows, and I'm kind of afraid of brain damage. So I'm not a fan of getting an ass whooping. But I can't argue with his logic that if more of these people who've been gaslit by their own privilege their whole life had gotten an ass whooping earlier on, they might have thought, maybe I shouldn't say that part out loud at least.
Yeah.
Maybe. And, there are plenty of people who are going to say, well, violence begets violence, and I would say that they're right to a point. But also, sometimes you need to give someone an ass whooping. And I think Jim Eastland should have had a few more ass whoopings.
And some anvils just need to be fucking dropped, man, on somebody's head.
Yeah. So, I left off last time with the efforts toward decriminalization not happening, and with pot smuggling still happening, because if it's not decriminalized,
you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, you've incentivized a black market. So parent groups in the 1970s get really, really moving in Atlanta of 1976. So decriminalization also ran into a huge roadblock at that point as well. And that kind of combination of things definitely killed it. And here's why. It was bicentennial summer. There's a woman named Marcia Keith. Her name is spelled, I'm not going to say spelled weird because that's how her name is spelled. Schuchard. Schuchard? Schuchard? Yeah, probably. She had a birthday party for her 13-year-old daughter in suburban Atlanta. She noticed at the party that a bunch of kids were high. And then she came to find out that kids all over the place were getting high.
Okay.
And they could buy rolling papers at the corner store.
Okay.
Well, so then she did what any parent would do. She called the school. Are you aware that kids are doing this? And the schools were like, yeah, no, it's a thing that happens. And on occasion we have to suspend a kid for getting high on campus. But like, it's just kind of part of the American experience at this point that kids are going to experiment with drugs.
40% of kids are doing it.
Yeah. So we know it's
we know.
Yeah, we're not overly concerned about it. It's part of growing up right now. That's just how it is. And so because schools didn't overreact in the way that she wanted, then she
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So, we are facing something similar not now that COVID, but prior, like in the last year, the amount of concern that went into vaping I was like, y'all are getting kind of hysterical about this. And it's like, well, we can't, like a teacher can can turn his back and a kid can take a hit off of a vape thing because I'm that hip.
You're that hip.
More hip than Bo Jackson,
maybe.
But, but they can take a hit off the vape thing, and by the time the teacher turns around, it is vaporized. Like you might not even smell it.
Yeah.
So, and that's entirely true. And there's all kinds of devices that are marketed toward kids, and we had a training on it and all that. And part of me was like, okay, so we lost that fight too. Okay, like I'm still. And the problem is that they're now getting THC into it, so kids are able to get high off of it and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm like, we'll bust what we can and stuff like that. But I regularly would tell my students, I'm like, I don't understand your friends who get caught smoking pot in the bathroom, because it's not like we're going to actually look differently at them taking an edible. Like, I'm not going to look at a kid with a brownie going, oh, I bet you it's like, oh, that's his dessert. Cool, whatever. Like, put it in edible form and no one gets caught. But, I'm a practical man. But so, schools knew about it, but they just accepted it. And parents, however, had linked pot to pregnancy because they remembered 1972.
Oh, okay.
Remember acid and abortions?
Oh, Jesus.
Right. So they're like, well, if kids are doing pot, then they're getting pregnant. It's like, no, they're fucking. That's why they're getting pregnant. But also, at this point, it's starting, and you're starting to see the growth of the religious right. You're starting to see that block, and they're absolutely rolling right along with these. And she started what's called the Nosy Parents Council. So also in 1978, Up in Smoke came out by Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So there's this overall groundswell of pot culture. In fact, if you look at Laugh-In, for instance, and if you look at the Smothers Brothers, there were pot jokes as far back as the 1960s on TV. And they were, a wink and a nod. But then you've got Saturday Night Live, and it's not winking or nodding or anything. It's like straight up, making pot jokes. And again, just to reset, from 1972 to 1977, the amount of adults who admitted to using pot went from 11 to 24%. And then by 1985, that increased to 33%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in 10 years, in 72 to 85, so that's a 13-year period, it had gone up triple.
Jiminy Christmas.
For kids in 75, it was just under 40. By 80, it was 50%. Interestingly, by 85, it had dipped to 40% again.
Huh.
So that Just Say No movement and the war on drugs and all that brought it back down to 1975 levels. I'm not going to call that any kind of success, because you dropped it by 10% and you dropped it to levels that existed 10 years prior.
Yeah.
So, but the reaction was that the Nosy Parents Association, it's what she called it, gave rise to something called the National Parents Resource Institute for Drug Education. Pride.
Oh, God. All right.
Yeah. This thing quickly grew. There ended up being 4,000 chapters nationwide. Now, I think that once they got the bee out of their bonnet about drugs, once their kids had graduated and they passed the torch on to other parents who wanted to be panicked and wanted to show how good of parents they were by how scared they were, I think that there's a strong overlap between the membership of this group and the membership of the parents who instituted the satanic panic of the 80s. And I would love if you did an episode on that. Because D&D.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And because, I mean,
because I referenced it in one of our bumpers.
Yeah. So, but here's what Pride did. They barged their way into the National Institute of Drug Abuse. And because they were like, we're parents and we're really worried, and they started like publishing all kinds of ridiculous pseudoscience panicky pamphlets that were legitimized because they were part of the NIDA now. Like they insisted on having it's kind of like if a union and a district are arguing with each other. That's negotiations, that happens. And then a parent group self-appoints itself and says, we should have a seat at the table too. And it's as though they were listened to and allowed to. It's like, wait a minute, who invited the self-appointed non-experts? Well, we have all these things from Google, you see. And it's like, no, you could take them somewhere else then. These parents did this successfully. They infiltrated the National Institute of, what did I call the NIDA, the National Institute of...
NIDA.
Yeah, I lost my spot, of drug abuse.
Drug abuse.
And they start, again, like I said, publishing ridiculous pseudoscience. There was an 80-page pamphlet that they published, and it had the legitimacy of the NIDA that they wore, like Buffalo Bill wore, of women, like as skin. And they were just like, see, we're official.
That's a hell of an analogy.
Yeah, well, so that's true.
Okay.
So
when you say it was full of pseudoscience, what kind of bullshit were they peddling in it?
That's where you start to get into things like it affects testosterone production, pot does, and it makes people at once more impotent and more sex crazed. It like whatever scary shit that you could use, there you go. Like a lot of dare education comes out of this.
Okay, and were you when I mentioned gateway drug?
Yeah, this is where you start to.
This is okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Because you said bicentennial summer.
Yep.
Okay.
So this parent group, Pride, starts getting the NIDA to go hard after high times because this is marketing to kids. And we're panicked about kids and kids and kids and kids. Will someone think of the children? And what I found is as soon as somebody does that, they gain a level of moral legitimacy that if you attack it, you're the monster.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. And so then, not surprisingly, they then start attacking the, quote, permissive liberalism of the culture at the time. And
permissive liberalism of the culture at the time in 1976.
Mm-hmm. Well, by this point, it's 78 or so. But yes, it's right in that it's hanging in the air there, and it's getting a lot of traction. So their children,
and they were demonizing disco in the midst of doing this, weren't they?
Yes, something that people of color, gay folk, or queer folk enjoyed quite a bit, and that was quickly tied to cocaine because it absolutely was tied to cocaine. But yes, they're doing that. So yeah, it's So their children are being seduced by the devil's lettuce. And decriminalization? Hell no. Like we're going to run the other way, especially under Reagan. Hence comes the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Now, before I get to the war on drugs, and I'm not going to spend that much time on it, to be honest, I want to go to the other coast. So we've left the East Coast behind. I want to talk about Humboldt County. Because even though it wasn't about smuggling, it still was about sliding in under the radar. It still was about delegitimizing the government's efforts, and it still was the authority versus generally decent people who want to just make a little extra money, and they're not doing that much harm.
Okay.
So, in Humboldt County, there was a huge agricultural approach to pot farming. Okay, the growing season in Humboldt County was 6 months long, and the climate was perfect for it, so that helped. And pot was used to sustain microeconomies in Northern California because lumber had disappeared. That market had dried up because of the housing boom of the baby boomers. The growth of suburbs was built largely on the lumber from the Pacific Northwest. And so those places are stripped out. So now, what can you make money doing? Well, you can grow 6 plants of pot, and like literally just 6 plants will get you $4,000 or $5,000. That's pretty good.
Holy moly!
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
So
if you plant 5 acres of the stuff,
well, yeah, and that's the latifundia people. Like again, you've got two groups here. You've got people who are doing just a little bit. They're anti-authorian on some level, and they just want to be left alone, and they're going to make a little bit of extra money. And then you've got other people who are like, oh, this is how I'm going to make my windfall of cash, and I will protect it with guns and booby traps and everything.
Okay.
So it was kind of a back to the land vibe that's going on as well, mixing with that hipster outlaw romance.
Okay.
Which also is mixing with commercial capitalism in a black market.
So this is pot smoking hippies as business majors.
Yeah, this is the people who were radicals who fought against Reagan when he was the governor. Are often the exact same people who finished getting their degrees and then decided to leave the rat race or decided to live their ideology, and the money that they would get by growing pot to sell would enable them to do that and live a pretty chill life and just, grow a little. And there's other people who are like much more type A about it and like, I have to make all the money. But a lot of these people are just small farmers, kind of like the equivalent would be like you have a small kiosk at a farmer's market every month.
Okay.
You have just enough, and it's more you do it because you've got some surplus, but you like what you grew,
Yeah.
So, and again, there's these towns that are just everywhere that have fallen. And this pot growth kind of helps rejuvenate them. And the idea is a Jeffersonian ideal of like small farmers.
Okay, yeah.
Living on essentially frontiers where the law doesn't really come out there.
Okay, so you mentioned when your folks were looking to start a farm, that the vibe they got in Carolina was a Mendocino County vibe.
Yes.
Is this kind of the group of people that you're talking about?
Yeah. So there's two types. Again, there's the person who's just like, whatever, and they maybe they live a pretty solitary life and they do their thing and they just take care of it. There's another group that is absolutely about making the money, and they're very suspicious, and on and on and on. That second group is what you saw a lot more of. And my mom, actually, she told me when I was very young, she brought me up there to cut buds for the growers and, make some extra money. But that was the vibe that she got from the people that she was, I guess, working with or for, was that there was a lot of suspicion where there ought not have been. So it was, it's unsettling.
Okay.
Because if you're small enough at it, you're doing your own cutting and you're doing your own drying. But if you're big enough at it where you're hiring people, you are banking on this, and now it's your livelihood. So, but yeah, you've got, by the way, you still have people smuggling, and I would like to point out, notice who's doing the smuggling. Mostly it's ex-military men who learned how to fly.
Okay.
And I just bring that up as kind of an echo point. So by and large, you have independent farmers, private commerce, distrust of central government, the outlaw frontier, rugged individualism, all kinds of fun ways to hide the process from the law, up to and including renting hotel rooms for weeks on end and just turning up the heat and drying the pot in the hotel rooms. And the hotel owners absolutely knew and had no problem with it because you're renting their rooms for 4 or 5 weeks at a time, or 2 or 3 weeks at a time, which is way better than they would have had otherwise. There was a former forest ranger who was a Vietnam vet that I found his explanation of what was going on. He used pot to supplement his income as a forest ranger. And he said, quote, "To a certain extent, I liked the outlaw aspect of it. And during the early 1980s, when the first Reagan recession came along, here I was in a cash economy, not affected by all this bullshit, people going nuts in the cities and worrying about their decreasing standard of living. Hey, mine was actually increasing and without having to pay taxes. I didn't care what the law said. I knew it was not morally objectionable. The prices were so exorbitant, what kids could afford it anyway?"
All right.
So now when you find prosperity like this, and that brings all types. And in the 1980s, it brings up the Gordon Gekko model.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in the early 80s, there were armed guards walking around willing to shoot people. There were explosive booby traps. There were punji stick booby traps. There was all kinds of like paranoid, you stay off my land kind of latifundia pot plantations that were protected by people who were willing to kill to keep it going, which is why when I have students who go up to Humboldt County, I tell them flat out, if you go hiking, that's great. If you see these things, and I start listing different signs to let you know, I said, you stop where you are and you go home. You get off that land as quick as you can because you just walked into someone's, illicit
grow operation.
Yeah, and they will kill you. Or people, then that can happen.
What are the signs in question?
The one that I remember, like it's been a while since I've had a kid who's gone up to Humboldt County for college, but if you see plastic bags nailed up on the eye line on a tree, plastic bags, and you see multiple, that's a boundary.
Okay.
And so back it up. And because after that, there's booby traps and there's people with guns. There's also towers that people set up, observation towers, to shoot at people to keep them away.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it got, again, when you have a black market, you're going to have a couple different kinds of people. And one of the kinds of people you're going to get is just standard happy-go-lucky folk who are looking to, sneak a little something, get one over on the government. And then there's others, right?
Yeah.
Now, in 1982, Ronald Reagan declared war on drugs.
Yes.
He said, quote, "We're making no excuses for drugs, hard, soft, or otherwise. Drugs are bad, and we're going after them. As I've said before, we're taking down the surrender flag and running up the battle flag. We're going to win the war on drugs." So, again, with Eastland, here's 1,000 things that you can pick apart with just those two sentences. There's a ton here where you're just like, oh my God, the amount of energy it's going to take to unpack and prove wrong what you said.
You can't actually be involved in a war,
right,
against a thing,
right? Because
that's not.
How does it sue for peace?
That's a flawed analogy.
It is.
That's and it's interesting now in our current events. We've talked about when people start bringing out the war metaphors and the hero metaphors. That somebody has been or is about to become expendable.
Mm-hmm.
So in the war on drugs, who is expendable?
Well, the war on drugs isn't really a war on drugs. It's a war on people of color and the poor.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's a war on the marginalized. It's a way of tugging at that heartstring that works in large swaths of our country where they had it coming because they were doing something illegal. It's like, well, it shouldn't have been illegal maybe. Nope, it was illegal because it was against the law. And you're like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah.
So they began something called the Campaign Against Marijuana Planting. And I also saw it was called the Campaign Against Marijuana Production, and so the P gets switched around, but it's called CAMP.
Okay.
And it starts in 1984, and it's essentially an effort to Vietnamize the pot growers, like straight up. Like, you come in on helicopters and you attack them and you burn their shit out. You treat them like the Viet Cong, which really sucks for a lot of these people who were actual veterans of that war.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. I was talking to my parents about this. I was like, these people who went up here were some of the same people who were part of the SDS, who were part of the people that Reagan attacked as radicals in the 60s. And now they've grown up by 20 years. And the same goddamn guy is attacking them again.
Yeah.
Shit, and he's using the government again to crack down on them. And here's a quote, he was absolutely morally right, and he was going to do this regardless of law or people's rights, and if he couldn't, he would just change the laws. Camp from the beginning made no observance of any constitutional restrictions on law enforcement. And
Okay.
So that's how people in Humboldt saw what was going on. And by this point, they had elected sheriffs who didn't give a shit or who looked the other way. Well,
yeah.
Reagan's bringing in the federal government because, states' rights.
Yeah, this from a guy who, there are multiple surviving campaign photos of him, standing next to Confederate flags.
Yes.
Like states' rights.
Well, it was in his inauguration speech.
Yeah, I know.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like with, everybody of that ideological ilk, it's states' rights. Well, until we're the ones in power, at which point we're going to do what we fucking want.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it really is that. And this guy, this veteran, called it out. Like, he saw it for what it is. Now, the government used U-2 spy planes. Yeah, and prior to camp, the first year of their war on drugs in 1983. So this is prior to camp. The federal government reduced pot production in Humboldt County by a whopping 10%.
All right.
And what they did was they took out most of the latifundia farmers that they could find, but the small growers were way more savvy. So in 1984, the DEA, along with camp, they came out of helicopters onto people's land with assault rifles and a bunch of officers and agents who were down in Southern California being pumped full of stories of insurgent pot growers using punji sticks and all kinds of like booby traps and stuff like that. Like straight up like, the Viet Cong handbook.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's what these people are doing. So you have these young men who are well armed, poorly informed, and badly trained, pointing guns at civilians for growing pot on their own land and coming out of helicopters to do so.
Wow.
So that's a dynamic that's happening, and people in Humboldt County genuinely felt colonized. There's a DEA field agent whose name kept popping up, William Rusamenti, and he said that, quote, there were boards of supervisors that thought that way, that you should just look the other way, and this is not a big deal. There were sheriffs that thought that way, that it's, again, fine to look away because it's good for the local economy and you're not doing much harm. Continues. Those people are dinosaurs. They're not around anymore. And I think you're going to find that the marijuana grower is a dinosaur. He is not long for this world either. It's really hard not to feel colonized when a guy's saying that.
Well, one, it's really hard not to feel colonized. And two, looking back on that from 2020, there's a certain urge to point and laugh.
Go on.
Well,
make it clear for everyone, because
okay, well, because pot growers are dinosaurs. You're not going to see their you're not going to see them anymore. My best friend from college works for a security company, and he is a designer of large scale security systems, integrated cameras, monitoring systems, that kind of stuff. And one of the big jobs that he wound up getting sent out on to do engineering for was in Colorado back before the plague, to develop the security system for the growing and packaging operation for a privatized, legalized pot farming operation of Herculean scale. Like I cannot begin to describe to you just exactly like an entire industrial warehouse.
Yeah.
That had been converted to have grow lights and be the growing operation.
Yeah. It's astounding.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not the amount of money that people are starting to make legally off of this now is like mind-boggling, and that's in states that states' rights, states that have said, yeah, no, you know what, it's not that big a deal.
Right.
We're legalizing it. It started with medical marijuana. And now it's gone, fully to, no, seriously, if you want to, smoke a joint, if you want to use the stuff recreationally, we're gonna treat it like, don't drive a vehicle when you're under the influence of a substance.
Right.
And you can't be busted for possession. You can be busted for use in public, same as you can for drinking alcohol in public.
Exactly.
But that's it. And on the federal books, it's still, oh my God, restricted, class, whatever,
right,
substance. And it's like you kind of want to find this field agent guy and be like, so who's a dinosaur?
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
Because it was all this, oh my God, demonizing the people that were doing this, and it was so much time and effort and money and blood and treasure spent, trying to stamp this stuff out.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it grew like a weed.
Yeah.
And in the end, who won? Like,
well, who won were white corporations, not people of color.
That's
and
what
so
who
won
what I was about to get around to was the people, unfortunately, who are now the ones making all the money are, white boys your and my age and, younger.
Yeah.
Who have reaped the benefit of the price that was paid by a whole lot of marginalized people and a whole lot of a whole lot of these independent growers that you're talking about. Yeah. But yeah.
So did I mention that there were no warrants? Because that should bear mention. Did I mention that there were roadblocks where they would have illegal searches of vehicles? And did I mention the pulling out of families of their cars at gunpoint? Did I mention the town of Denny in Trinity County, where a group of DEA agents marched through the town in formation, chanting war on drugs, like a conquering army? Did I mention that? I feel like I should have mentioned that.
You're fucking kidding, really?
Nope. Yeah, that happened. That was a thing.
Wow. Like, that's crazy. Because,
yeah.
What could that possibly establish any kind of precedent for when you have civilian law enforcement behaving in a paramilitary fashion without, any kind of attention being paid to people's constitutional rights?
Well, and then citizens.
I mean, next they'll be showing up to protests and dragging people off the street
in unmarked vans,
in unmarked vehicles.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, nothing like that will ever happen because our democratic institutions are too strong.
Yeah, and we've learned our lesson, too.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
So, yeah. Well, and so here's where the lines get drawn, because citizens start creating observation groups. There are civil liberties monitors with video tape capabilities. because it was the age of the camcorder, right?
This is true.
So then Reagan signed the crime bill in 1984 that allowed land seizures. And now you get forfeiture auctions. And the best part was they would file that before storming onto your land. And as a result, you had to prove that you weren't growing pot on your land instead of the government having a warrant proving probable cause that you were in fact growing pot on your land. And in one instance, the government actually filed a lien against a veteran's property at 8 in the morning. I want to say it was sometime in the morning. And it was 1 hour before they stormed his house and tore through it, complete with automatic assault rifles. And I remember reading his interview about it, and he says, oh, it was nice because they actually found some shit that I had lost and couldn't find. Like they found the deed to my house that I lost 6 months ago. They found these peyote buttons that I'd forgotten that I had for 15 years. They found
kind of an unfortunate time for those to get discovered.
Yeah,
but,
well, and they found like 4 baggies of pot from the previous year. And then they found a Time magazine article about like pot pipes or something, and they laid it out as kind of like a fuck you to him. Now, the result of this was that people found newer and more clever ways to avoid detection. Quote, there's a whole mystique about beating camp. All these minute details and techniques like hollowing out the top of an oak tree for a single plant. Every plant they grew and harvested every plant they grow and harvest becomes a victory for them.
Yeah.
So you've got this, and the DEA, by the way, for its part, shifted away from using U-2 spy planes and just started looking at why people's electric bills were so high.
Well, yeah, because, you got to wonder about the mindset of people who were like, well, we're going to use the spy planes. Mm-hmm. And that was their go-to. Mm-hmm. Their go-to is we're going to take this literally military hardware mm-hmm. that has been utilized to try to keep an eye on where the Russians are moving their missiles.
Right.
And we're going to repurpose this to try to spot Bud.
Right. We're going to spy on our own citizens.
Well, I mean, okay, but over and above the moral yich that's involved in that, mm-hmm. just the like, I almost want to say that like they must have been doing coke in the meeting where they came up with that idea.
That's entirely possible too.
Because it's like, okay, no, stop. How much money mm-hmm. does it cost? How many man hours does it take to maintain that airplane? To fuel the aircraft? For every hour the aircraft is in the sky, mm-hmm. how much does it cost to operate the aircraft? And then for all of the hours in between while it's being fixed up between flights, how like the dollar cost involved there as opposed to mm-hmm. Number one, we have helicopters.
Right.
Like if we want to do aerial survey, we've got helicopters and, we have.
Well, and they buzzed over super low just to terrorize the farmers with the helicopters.
Well, yeah.
Like that was a tactic as well.
Well, yeah, because, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Obviously. But then there's other tools. Mm-hmm. Like cheaper, easier other tools. Like,
and then they started using those too. Like
I know, but that wasn't the go-to.
No,
the go-to was we're going to use a spy plane.
Yeah.
Like honestly, what are you smoking, and do you have any left?
No, well, if not, they can grab it from.
Grab it from whoever they're. Yeah.
So anyway. All of that is, of course, background for what I'm really here to talk to you about. I'm really going to be talking to you about sci-fi movies with pirates and smugglers. And I'm just going to give you a short list of characters from movies. Movies that dealt with drugs, smuggling, or piracy. Because all of those are essentially the same thing in terms of the legitimacy of the authority and in terms of what harm are we really doing. I'm not saying that pirates are good guys by any stretch, but in the movies of sci-fi movies, they absolutely were. They were the plucky...
the plucky underdog.
With no order in mind either. Ice pirates. You had the character of Jason.
Yep.
Dune. Dune focused on spice and protecting that cartel.
Okay.
Alien, even kind of, because it talks about, human beings as a mule for something that's harmful. And I think those are kind of more peripheral, but I also think that they're pulling on something there. There's a movie called Battle Beyond the Stars with George Peppard. Plays a character named Cowboy. And it's essentially a sci-fi remake of Seven Samurai, but he specifically is a guy who's shipping laser handguns, and he gets attacked. The movie Cocoon.
Okay.
You're transporting the cocoons and smuggling them by boat.
Okay.
Repo Man. God, I miss I love Repo.
Okay.
I watched that movie way too young. You won't like to see what's in the back of the car. But the guy who played Malik in Conan the Destroyer was in Repo Man.
Yeah.
John Wayne's, and then he uses the F word for gay people. The hell he ain't. But Repo Man, they find something in the back of the trunk of a Chevy Malibu.
Okay.
And it's essentially the same thing that's in the suitcase that Marcellus Wallace wants them to pick up in Pulp Fiction. But Starman. There's a movie called Starman. I don't know if you know that one. There's Jeff Bridges, and he's basically an alien who asks a woman to transport him from Wisconsin to Arizona, and the authorities are on their tail the whole time.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
E.T. Elliot smuggled E.T. out of that really nightmare-inducing, like, clear plastic place. Yeah. Star Crash.
That movie. Speaking of movies that you saw too young.
Yeah.
I should not have seen that one at the age I was at.
It's so weird too, because it was absolutely a kid's movie, but it just touched on such existential terror of abandonment.
Yeah.
So Star Crash, which is a total shitty cash-in movie on Star Wars' success, but it stars David Hasselhoff and Christopher Plummer. And Christopher Plummer said the only reason he took the job was because it was all being shot in Rome, so it was a free trip to Rome. He even said, I would have done porno to get to Rome. Which, I would watch Christopher Plummer porno if that meant I got to go to Rome. But
fair.
Yep.
Fair.
Right. But smugglers are trying to escape an imperial police force. Outland, which is a movie about a federal officer on the mining colony of Io, Jupiter's moon, uncovering a drug smuggling conspiracy. And then there were 3 movies between 1975 and 1985 that starred a plucky, daring-do kind of fellow who is a smuggler who had his own vehicle to do it, and it was called Star Wars.
You're being intentionally obtuse.
Yeah, quite so.
Yeah.
So Han Solo, baby. So most of these characters are absolutely protagonists, but they were doing bad things. Against a worse government. And smuggling for each of them was a strikeout against the authority, a way to make a little more money, and a way to have to answer to nobody.
Okay.
And that absolutely struck George Lucas the right way. George Lucas has described Han Solo as, quote, a free enterprise small businessman.
Okay.
And he later said, quote, the way my father brought me up gave me a lot of the common sense that I use to get me through the business world. So George Lucas, from a very young age, appreciates the efforts of small businessmen. He has that kind of Jeffersonian commercial instead of farming kind of
I was going to say, if we're being strictly literal here, Jefferson hated the merchant class, but yes, true. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. You combine that with him saying this: I've always had a basic dislike of authority figures, a fear and resentment of grown-ups. It's little wonder that he writes Han Solo as a smuggler who owns his own ship. When George Lucas was 15, his dad caved and bought him his own car, and he loved like souping that thing up. He wrapped it around a telephone pole and ended up in the ICU for weeks. And it was a very defining moment in his life. But the idea of having his own vehicle, I mean, that's the whole thing behind American Graffiti, just the freedom of all that. Now, for a second, I want to dip into THX 1138.
Oh, okay.
It's a dystopian movie where sex and procreation are specifically outlawed, which this is all written by George Lucas. Now, that means he read 1984.
Yes.
Also, people have to take drugs determined by the government as mandatory for controlling everyone. This tells me he also read Brave New World. Everyone wore the same white clothes, stormtroopers, and had their heads shaven. And everyone performs dangerous jobs for the government satisfaction, and mandatory drugs absolutely help that to happen. Romance is outlawed, family and emotions are taboo topics. This was released in 1971.
Yes.
Now, back to Nixon. 1971. Nixon is absolutely scaring the living shit out of Americans about heroin and drugs.
Okay.
American GIs are coming back from Vietnam hooked on heroin. Up to 51% of American GIs by 1971 had tried pot. Now that's by 1971. 51% of soldiers had done something that only 11% of Americans had tried to do at home.
Well, okay, when you take a 19-year-old and you separate him from his entire emotional, social support structure, and you send him through, I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 weeks of training, and then give him a gun and send him into a foreign country where people are constantly trying to fucking kill him.
Yes.
Then you really shouldn't be that surprised that he develops bad habits as coping mechanisms.
Yeah, I was going to say he's self-medicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the experience of a conscript army being sent into that kind of conflict was unprecedented.
It really was. Now, 31% of the... Oh, go on.
Well, yeah, and so, you know, the army that fought World War II was also a conscript army, but it was a different war. It was what they were trained to fight when they went through basic training. It was okay, this is where the enemy is going to be. This is how you're going to move. This is what you're going to do.
Here's the front line.
Here's the front line. And then they got to Vietnam and it was like, well, okay,
there's no front line.
Really there is no front line. Your entire job when you go out on combat patrol is to go out and, you know, try to get them to shoot at you.
Yep.
So you can use superior firepower to end them.
Right.
Because, you know, the leadership of the other side in this particular war has figured out they have to use Fabian tactics or we're gonna steamroller them. And you know, and so like there is not any way, or there was not at the time any way to prepare those young men for that.
Yeah.
Like they were on top of everything else about that war. The kids that we were sending over to fight it were utterly unprepared. They were utterly untrained. All of the learning they had to do was in the field.
Yep.
And so, I mean, the stress level involved is ridiculous. So of course they were smoking weed. Like,
well, 31% of them had also tried acid or some other hallucinogen. 28% had tried heroin or cocaine. Now, 23% of troops were black. 25% of the total number of troops were drafted. However, the specter of the draft caused plenty to volunteer, so they'd had some say as to where they'd go. So, and the lottery had started under Nixon in 1969, the lottery draft.
Yeah.
So the existential fear of draft without privilege, which had a high correlation to drug experimentation, and a visibly higher percentage of black soldiers coming back addicted, or having used, allowed Nixon to use that to scare the shit out of people about drugs, which caused white folks to clutch their pearls and be completely okay with the dog whistle that was about racism. Now, here's that quote by John Ehrlichman, Nixon's domestic policy chief. He said, quote, "The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." Now, that's all happening in the soup of George Lucas going to film school. Now, by the way, felony drug sentencing, which disproportionately fell on people of color, disqualifies folks from voting. Currently, 1 in 13 black people of voting age cannot vote due to this disqualification. That is currently as of today. That's 2.3
50
million.
years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.3 million of the 30.8 million black people over 18 cannot vote. Anyway, his first movie was THX 1138, and it comes out at that time. And look into his view on drugs. Famously, his whole class of fellow directors did all the drugs ever.
Well, yeah.
And he mostly abstained. And he was very focused on keeping as much of his movie's profits to himself. He's thinking differently than all the other guys. He's not there to enjoy as much as he's there to make his own thing. He doesn't want studios to get the money. He doesn't want authorities over him to get the money. He says, quote, "Normally you just sign a standard contract with a studio, but we wanted merchandising, sequels, all those things. I didn't ask for another $1 million, just the merchandising rights. And Fox thought that was a fair trade. He didn't like other people telling him what to do." This goes all the way back. And so in the 1970s, when he's creating this movie, he's got Han Solo in there. So THX 1138 was absolutely informed by the cultural preoccupation with drugs, an overbearing government, the enforcement of conformity, etc. And George Lucas, a film student who struggled against authority anyway, wrote and directed this not very successful film.
Yeah.
But really, I want to focus on Han Solo here because, of course, I do. So he is George Lucas's ideal, reacting to the 1970s dominant culture. He's a smuggler. He is an American smuggler, let's be honest. He has his own ship. He lives by his own rules. He flouts imperial authority at every turn. He's former military. He lies low. He brags loud. And he has a past, prior to picking up the oddest passengers available, that involves smuggling spice, which Lucas later on pointed out, oh, that's space drugs. He swindled his ship from Lando, or at least there's room left to question that. He's got a best friend and a ship. He is a lovable scoundrel.
Yes.
Han Solo embodies everything about the romantic hipster outlaw that was flying just on the corner of society's drug culture's eyes. Han Solo represents pluck, but also a refusal to adhere to the rules. He shows them as flawed and oppressive rules. He's smart, he's funny, he's fast, but he's also vain, greedy, and makes really dumb choices.
Yes.
He's basically a good person trying to find his way in a really big and complicated universe without having to answer to anybody. Now, even more so, smugglers have a certain set of skills that are cinematically dramatic and compelling. They're usually good at some sort of vehicle, so you can get chase scenes. They're good at hiding, so you get that tension scene. They're good at getting away, so you can have the denouement be escape.
Mm-hmm.
All sort of tension, all sort of peril, and all sort of pluck exist within those dynamics.
Okay. Yeah. No, they're great. They're great fodder for any kind of storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. So Han Solo is all those things, right? But he's also some other things that are similar to what we saw in the 1970s drug smuggling culture, especially the pot smuggling. Not so much the cocaine smuggling, because those fuckers were prone to horrible, horrible violence. Those murders that I told you about in the last episode in Miami, they included plenty of mutilations. They included taking chainsaws to people who were still alive to send a message. Like awful torture.
Oh, horrible. Well, okay. So
pot guys didn't do that.
no, pot guys didn't do that. Yeah. No, I gotta at this point, unfortunately, I have to bring up Tiger King.
Okay.
Which you haven't seen.
No. And history's proven me right that seeing it is unimportant.
Yeah, well, yeah. But one of the stories that comes out over the course of that miniseries is that one of the people in the exotic big cat breeding, private ownership, business, is possibly the guy that you mentioned Scorsese was having that conversation with, who
Oliver
got up
Stone,
in the room. Oliver Stone,
yeah.
And it was in large part his whole operation was actually a big part of the factual inspiration for Scarface. And he did time for all this stuff. And as you mentioned, the crime that he insists was all his business partner, not him. He didn't do any of that kind of stuff. But involved somebody being taken apart with a circular saw. Now in that case, I don't believe it was while they were still alive, but still, it's taking a circular saw to a human being.
Right.
So yeah, those guys were bonkers, crazy, violent nuts.
And that's mostly cocaine. And then later on the harder drugs as well, but that's mostly the cocaine smugglers, not the pot smugglers.
No, the pot guys. It's interesting that is kind of the distinction, because think about what does pot do to one. Talked about this last episode.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And whereas cocaine, you become hyper paranoid and wired, and the level of danger to self and others involved with cocaine is higher than with marijuana. Yeah, it kind of makes sense that the guys that are smuggling the one are going to be, crazy, scary, and the other ones are going to be like, I really don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I would also say that pot smugglers, there was a fair degree of paranoia amongst them as well, and it's not like they didn't get into violence. They absolutely did. Just like Han Solo, when we first see him, he shoots first. He shoots Greedo, kills him dead, done. And then he moves on. It's not, I'm going to torture you over the next 3 hours and then send your penis to your family. Like, it's not that. There is a difference in the type of violence when they do engage in violence. Because, again, we saw in Humboldt County, you had people willing to shoot people. You did have that. But ultimately, it's a different thing. Han Solo is all the things that we mentioned, but he's flouting the law, but he's not doing so maliciously. He harkens back to this ethical, not lawful, good person. And most of the people in Humboldt County and most of the pot smugglers, most not all, were people who chafed against authority but didn't really want to hurt anybody. They wanted to shove their thumb in the eye of people in charge. Most of the guys flying planes and kicking out the bales of pot over farms in the Carolinas were former military men who, again, chafed against authority, but really didn't want to hurt anyone. Yeah. And both groups on both coasts got to make some fairly easy money, and they'd live according to their own rules and not have to answer to anyone.
Yeah.
That's Han Solo. And even if they worked for some awful people, like, say, Jabba the Hutt, they could still maintain their own self-image of being their own man. And, they're not tied to that organization. They just move stuff from time to time. And since they're mostly not doing the killing, unless, some are, they're mostly just escaping, they're similarly attractive to people who saw the romance of what pot smugglers were doing, and that was something that was in the zeitgeist in the 1970s. So ultimately, Han Solo and the pot smugglers of the 1970s were accidental heroes and incidental criminals, which in the 70s are protagonists.
Okay.
And the ubiquity of that type of character throughout the genre during that stretch of time is absolutely an embodiment of accidental hero, incidental criminal.
Well, yeah. And it's not just in science fiction, I mean, the lifestyle of that was glorified in any number of kind of movies or dramatized, milked for drama, at least, if not glorified,
right,
in any number of kinds of movies. And in popular music, there's a legacy of that. The two examples that immediately jump into my mind when you're talking about this, I actually had to look them up to figure out when they were recorded. And it turns out both of the songs that occurred to me, well, one of them was in the time period that you're talking about, Smuggler's Blues by Glenn Frey, was recorded in, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I want to say it was 1983.
Okay.
And it is a song, an Eagles-esque Glenn Frey song,
right?
From the point of view of a drug runner, it painted in a sympathetic light. And then there's another song that I now have to look back up, Treetop Flyer, which I want to say it's Crosby Stills. Give me a second. Stephen Stills, my bad.
Okay.
On his own, Stephen Stills. That is, it came out in 1991, so it's a long time after the time period we're talking about, but it could be the memoir of one of these guys from that time period, talking about, I learned how to fly low and fast from Uncle Sam taught me how to do this. So I don't get, the VC won't be able to shoot you down.
Right.
And talks about, and there I was at the airport. I got approached by a guy who said, "Hey man, you want to make some fast cash?" And and so
there it is.
Even that long after the time period, we still see this sympathetic view of the guys that are doing this, because who isn't attracted to a romantic rogue kind of figure like that? And there's a little bit of Robin Hood going on there, and so I definitely see the power of the archetype in like during that time period and since that time period.
Yeah, well, so that's it. Han Solo is because people were smuggling pot in the 1970s. And he is so beloved because he embodied those values. And those are an eternally American set of values. If you really think about the very reason that Americans went to war with the British, it surrounded taxation on goods that were being shipped.
How did John Hancock make his money?
Jerking off chickens. Yeah.
Yes.
No.
No. He was a rum runner.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, he's a smuggler.
Yeah. multiple members of the Continental Congress made their money, and this is in the Northeast, mind you. The Bostonians and the New Yorkers and all of those guys, they made an additional. I mean, they had legitimate businesses, but they made additional money off the top by sneaking molasses in, that wasn't on their bill of sale.
Right.
Turning it into rum and then turning around and selling it for a profit that they didn't have to pay taxes on.
Mm-hmm.
And the British knew what was going on. And the British went, all right, well, we're going to cut down on that.
Well, and partly because those taxes were paying for the protection of soldiers on the frontier, because the American colonists couldn't be trusted to not antagonize the Indians even further.
Yes.
Like there was also like Americans during the Revolution were the shittiest college students who are upset that their parents are paying for things but don't want to turn off the spigot of money.
Yeah, no, you're not. I mean, yeah, that's certainly one way of explaining it. Yeah. Well, we want to expand into the Ohio Valley. You can't expand. We've talked about this. You can't expand into the Ohio Valley because we signed a treaty with those tribes to help us fight off the bloody French.
Right.
Well, but we want to expand into the Ohio Valley. Do you not look? Asked and answered. You continental colonial twit.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't compute. We need to get into the Ohio Valley. And while we're at it, why are you charging all these taxes? Because we have to have bloody redcoats.
Because you keep going into the Ohio Valley.
Going to the Ohio fucking Valley. And well, I don't like that. And so here we have.
Well, and like you said in the previous episode, NASCAR got its start as rum runners. Well, I'm going to use that, bootleggers. Showing off their fastest vehicles to each other and started racing the stock cars.
Yeah.
So, I mean, smuggling is such an American institution. I find it more interesting that smugglers didn't make it into sci-fi prior to the pot smugglers. And I think it has to do with airplane smuggling. Small, independently owned airplane smuggling really, no pun intended, took off in the 70s.
Okay.
And prior to that, it was boats and it was, cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's something about the flight of it that captured the imagination. And of course, Han Solo's a good guy.
Yeah.
And so, I really, so there's my thesis statement.
Okay.
So, yeah.
No, that works.
So, go on?
No. Oh. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have any books that you want to recommend to the audience tonight? Or this morning? Who knows when we're recording?
Who knows? Yeah, when the hell? Yeah.
We've kept it so timeless.
Yes. So very, very.
Yeah.
No, we haven't. I do not at present have anything in particular that I'm reading to recommend, because when I am not working on getting ready to go back to school, I have my head buried in the 42nd millennium of man, trying to figure out about getting back into Warhammer 40,000. Because God help me, I love that universe more than it probably deserves. So how about you though? You're a much bigger, more prolific reader most of the time than I am. So what are you going on?
I would disagree with that. I had that discussion with a friend of mine, actually. I was pointing out that you are much more broadly read, and the depths that you have on certain things are like just way different than mine, and so that I'm much more specialized in most of my reading. But speaking of specialized in my reading, I'm going to recommend A.C. Crispin. She has since passed, but she was a phenomenal author, wrote one of my favorite trilogy of books, the Han Solo trilogy. It starts with the Paradise Snare. It goes on to the Rebel Dawn, and then finally to the Hutt Gambit. And it is, if you want to know about Han Solo and his smuggling past, these books are amazing. Like, just such rich and vibrant and wonderful characters. And A.C. Crispin absolutely captured the essence of Han Solo. So I strongly recommend that trilogy of books for people.
It's been a long time since I read them, but I have to agree with you. They are by far some of the best extended universe, now Legends, stuff that's out there that was ever part of canon.
So much so that the movie Solo borrowed very liberally from these books.
Oh yeah,
that's why I haven't really minded Disney like calling it Legends. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be cool to see what cool things they take from the books now, and they absolutely took them from this series.
And in the moments that we have left, I just want to put in my own little note here. You mentioned the movie Solo. I think the movie did make one major mistake in that it tried to explain too many things all at once. Aside from that, I literally was like squeeing. I was so happy about so many things in that film the whole time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great Han Solo story. And I hope, probably against hope, that they're going to do something else with Aaron Reich as Han Solo, because it was awesome.
Yeah, his characterization was really good. Like, he looked nothing like Harrison Ford, but he absolutely acted like Harrison Ford's Han Solo. Just the striking of the poses that he struck was absolutely, and like the little smirks that he would do. His smirk looks nothing like Harrison Ford's smirk, but it absolutely looked like, oh, that's an affect that Han Solo has.
Yeah, it was
good. Yeah, it really did. So, well, if people want to disagree with you about Solo, where can they find you?
They can come fight me over that as Mr. Blaylock on Instagram, or you can find me on TikTok, even though I've only put up one video so far, and it's teachers union related.
You should do a dance on that thing. Like,
no,
waste on Tinder or whatever.
No,
shit
Lord, no.
Suburban moms do.
No, no. And then if you want to try to find me on the Twitter machine, I am EH Blaylock on the Twitters. We collectively are on the Twitter as Geek History Time. And if they want to find you, where can they shout at you to point out that, smugglers existed in science fiction long before Han Solo, and oh my God, you're completely wrong? Where would they go to do that?
Well, I think that they should find me at @DaHarmony, both on the Insta and the Twitter. There's 2 H's in the middle there. And if they just want to laugh at my puns and my jokes and all the fun that I can do comedically for them, they should look to twitch.tv/capital puns. Because we are Sacramento's #1 premier underground pun tournament, and we've been going for over 4 years now. So why
are there any others?
We are the #1 of them all. So,
are there any others?
And in all of California, we are also Sacramento's premier #1 underground pun tournament. Shut the fuck up. We're special.
Question asked and answered. I withdraw the question.
Sure. Well, I'll put it this way: I've seen some that have flashed up and then disappeared.
This is true.
We have sustainability, so there's that.
There's that, definitely.
So, yeah. All right. Well, for A Geek History of Time, I'm Damian Harmony.
And I'm Ed Blaylock. And until next time, keep rolling 20s.